Hi everyone, I hope you're well. So I hope you attempted lab 1. 2 things that you should know. Number 1, when you got to actually before you use what is it called? Before you use the CLI, you need to install, let me just type it. I'll drop it on the chat.
Probably use Q&A.
So install module microsoft.graph.users helps you to run the new MG user and get MG user. Let me just show you that. I think my machine has hung. Prof, my machine has hung. Let's give it time.
Okay, it's okay. Where is it hanging? What are you running? Isn't it the new machine? It's not
Yes,
the new
it
machine.
is. It does this.
Why? What is it running?
I have no idea.
That's not normal, not for the kind of machine you have. You need to find out if it has some malware. What are you running?
Windows.
No, like, are you running VMs? Are you running
like right
other?
now? No, I'm not running any other thing.
That's not normal.
So let me stop sharing and to share again.
Your machine has good specs. It shouldn't do that. You can also consult with Jen and find out, because you're using the same machine. I think also.
So this is where I'm at. Exercise 2, create a junior admins group containing the user account. So I won't create it again because it's already there. But what you needed to know is 1, install the commands that I've posted on the Q&A. so that you can be able to run this command. Where is it? So that you can be able to run this get user and new MG user. And then where it requires you to sign in with the email, you come to users. So you'll come to users. You select all users. And then this is what you will copy, user principal name. So it will be under the name that you created the account with. So you copy it and then that's what you use. Is that clear? Of course, it will tell you to authenticate it. So most probably you'll have to install, let me just check, Microsoft Authenticator. Are we together?
That's good.
Yes.
I don't know if there are any questions. I take that being no questions because we have a lot to cover today and we've been waiting for guys to join. So allow me to just start. So thank you, Lorraine. So let me start with some good news. I've been able to get a solution for us to do the lab seamlessly. However, I need to wait until next week, but let me just probably show you what it will look like. I had started this process for a previous group, which is the AZ 500 group. So I'll just show you how that looks like. So we'll be using Microsoft Learning. It's called what? Microsoft Learn. Oof. Sorry. Just a minute. It's run by Skillable. It's one of their training partners. And I'm just trying to show you, it logged me out. It logged me out my session. I had set it up before just to show you a small demo. Okay, so it's shown me. Yeah, so I had started the process for the first cohort, the one of the groups, but to look like this, to look something like this. So you'll be able to create your account. We'll be doing this hopefully by next week. Then, or well, if not, I'll just have you guys start with this particular one. So what we'll be doing is something like this. So you'll be having your labs like this, then you launch. And for each lab, you can see you have like 10 attempts. So each of the labs, so like for the one for role-based access control, you launch and you complete. Then you tick, it shows that you're done. Then it goes into your security, network security groups one, you're done. Azure firewall one, like that. How to configure each of them. And when you do that, it will create a tenant for you with the settings that you need to do the lab, like the ones you've been seeing for some of those labs. Then you can also do a practice assessment. You can also do like a challenge lab. So some of the challenge labs are you don't have what? You don't have the guide in us. Okay, well, this one is also guided, but you can have some of those challenge labs that will get you to try and do something different. I think here there's a challenge lab for managing identity. There's a challenge lab for implementing platform protection. Like this is like the peering, security groups. Yeah, anyway, so there are different challenge labs that will help you walk through the solutions. So this one was created for, this one I think was created for AZ 500. So there is hope. So I'm hoping for the one for AZ 204. I'm waiting for them. I'm waiting for them to give me the whatever, the codes for us to start. But as you can see, this one will also show a transcript of your activities. So we'll be able to track your completion. So that's good news. There's some hope. But for today's, I'll show you another method that we found, which is called sandboxing, because I know there's a problem with this particular lab, but I'll walk you through it when we get there, using the sandbox, which I've already set up. So we'll be able to see that option. All right, let's begin. And today I'm going to do two things. We're going to start with a web app, but then we'll also do OWASP. Any of you who's heard of OWASP? The OWASP, the Open Web Application Security Project. So again, we are touching on Microsoft tools and technologies, but adding the principles, the security principles on top. So, and in the process of that, we will also introduce you to other materials. And I think one of the ones we'll be discussing on will be today, but I'll explain that in the course of the class. And what is the aim? The aim of today's session will be for you to have an appreciation of software security. And we'll start with the ones that are very popular, like the ones relating to web applications. Then we'll go to API security. And then we'll be building into that, even like now discussing the web apps and now applying some of those principles when you now start deploying them. I know we have the web apps, we have functions, we have the blob, we have the database. So we'll be discussing how to interact with the database securely, how to do containerized solutions, then performance monitoring. Each of these is a lab that we will, some content and labs that we'll do. But let's first of all set the foundation, which will then carry us through with the security knowledge and the security understanding that we will need as we go along. All right, so having said that, let's begin, and I'll then go into the pivot into the next presentation. So this one hopefully wouldn't take us long. We'll do understanding of the app service, we'll configure it, and we'll do this in a sandbox as we wait for the setup that we're expecting. Then we'll also be able to discuss scaling of the apps and deployment slots. So let's discuss first what the app service is. So the app service is a form of platform as a service. If you remember, in our first lecture, we discussed the different service options for the cloud. So this one falls under platform as a service, and it is designed for hosting HTTP-based web applications. And also if you're deploying REST APIs, and also if you have a mobile application backend, you can also deploy it on the app service. Now, the app service applications run on Linux or Windows-based environments, depending on what you want to choose. Just a few things is that the reason why many people will go for this app service as opposed to maybe creating their own from the scratch, from ground up, is because number one, it has built-in support for scaling, and we'll be examining that so that if your web application receives higher demand, like many more users requesting to load it than you have, it spawns additional capacity, which allows for scaling in and out and scaling up and down. All right. So scaling in and out basically means creating more instances of the compute. Okay. So like if your app was running on one container, 2 or 3 are spawned. If it was running on one virtual machine, 2 additional or 3 are spawned. Scaling up and down is when you get additional resources. So if your app service was running on 8 GB RAM, it can be up to 16 GB RAM, you see? So that's now scaling up and down, okay? And what you'll see when you're setting up scaling, you'll need to, like, for example, for scaling in and out, you need to set up some metrics for this so that when it sees some certain related metrics, it can decide when to create more VMs, for example. Scaling up and down will involve also changing the service plan that you have selected so that it can involve more capacity. Now, the other reason why people will choose app service is it supports DevOps, CI/CD, continuous integration and continuous deployment. And the integrations will allow for integrating with Azure DevOps. So Azure has its own DevOps platform called Azure DevOps Solution. GitHub also, it will integrate with GitHub. So if you have a GitHub account, it's able to set up CI/CD for your web app, to pull the code from there and to deploy. And any changes you made and you commit, if you make changes and commit, the CI/CD pipeline is executed, okay? And your new changes are deployed. Bitbucket, it also supports the changes through FTP, also a local Git repository that you have on your machine, and many others. So app service is a DevOps compliant, if I could say, a solution. The other thing we'll see is the deployment slots. So you're able to create different versions, if I could call them, of your application. You can set up the staging, you can put a test environment, you can put a production environment. These are what are called deployment slots. Now, you always want your production to be the stable code. But you can also put some newer updates into the test environment. And when the test environment is stable, you're happy with having done the tests that you are doing, and you're happy to now take the code into production, what you can do is just swap. So you can actually set settings of a swapping of your testing into production, which is an easier method of deploying when you're able to now just swap the two environments, okay? So there's an element of that. And then you also can be able to have kind of like a versioning of your more stable code. So the other thing also is a mention of the service plans, and you saw the service plans being mentioned here when we're discussing the scaling. So you have the service plans defining a set of compute resources that you have available, and we'll discuss the different tiers. There's a shared, basic, standard, premium, and isolated. And what you're saying is that you can run more than one app, you can run more than one web app on the same plan, all right? So you can also scale up or down depending on your service plan. And remember what we said, scaling up and down means adding capacity or resources to your already running instance. So if your instance had 8 GB RAM and you want to improve performance by having it go to 16 GB, or maybe it was running on 2 vCPUs, virtual CPUs, and you want it to run on 4 virtual CPUs, those are examples of scaling up. And when the capacity requirements reduce, then you can scale back down. So let's discuss the tiers, and you'll be seeing this as we do the deployments. So the first is the shared, where you share the same resource execution, compute resource for dev and test, okay? Also, there's the basic, where you have a dedicated compute for dev and dedicated for the deployment, for the production. Then you have standard, which will be the best suited option when you're running production web apps, right? You want a stable environment, okay? So that one you can select the standard tier. Then you can go premium, which allows now for an enhanced performance and scaling, which is now where we were talking about scaling up and down. You can also select isolated, which is even for higher performance and also gives you security and isolation. So you can see that shared is the one which you have a shared virtual machine instance, so it's not really good for production workloads. This shared tier, it's been mentioned previously. I need to get my mouse. I don't know where it is. Oh, there we go. Yeah, so the shared one, we're saying it will get CPU minutes on a shared virtual machine. And it's not very good for production environments. It's not designed to be to meet the scaling up and down needs. But the other tiers run, as you can see, on a dedicated, if I could call it that, VM instance, based on the service plan: basic, standard, premium, isolated. Okay. So we'll be looking at how to deploy your app service, and we'll be doing that practically. So number one, please note that you can integrate with your DevOps for CI/CD. And we've already mentioned some of the platforms for automated CI/CD, like Azure DevOps, GitHub, and also Bitbucket, which are supported. But then you can also do your deployments manually by using Git commands. You can also do your deployments manually using the CLI, like what Lorraine was showing, and that's what we'll also use in our lab. There's also other options like zip deploy and FTP. And FTP, you always want to imagine you're doing that also with the secure option, which supports encryption and not the basic FTP. Then when you're deploying, you're either targeting the test or the production slots. So I'm going to show you that element of the slots. And then you can customize the settings that are being swapped. What do you want to be replicated from the test to production when you're doing the swappings? So you can select. Okay. Right. What else? You can also integrate authentication and authorization into your app service using various identity providers. So this one helps you with low code or no code, because you don't have to build in your application, in your web application, a whole module for handling authentication and authorization, right? You can use existing identity providers to handle the authentication and authorization, and you just get the tokens identifying that, showing that authentication has been done correctly. So you can integrate Microsoft Identity Platform, and in this case, you're already thinking of Entra. You can also integrate Facebook, Google, Twitter, Apple, and OpenID Connect as the authentication and authorization providers. And you now have those integrate with your web app. All right, so I'll do the demo. So I think with the demo, it will be a bit more easier to see. The other thing also, in terms of networking features, you can see some things that are mentioned there. You can be able to set up inbound rules. So for example, traffic coming in, you can set up for some specific app assigned IP addresses. You can also configure access restrictions. And I think in this particular group, we were to discuss the element of service endpoints and service identities. But service endpoints basically will be, if you have some, let's say, I'm giving an example of a database. You have a backend database. You can set up a service endpoint to allow forwarding of traffic from your web app to the backend database. The bucket database will be configured as a service endpoint. You can also see you can set up also private endpoints for, like, for example, outbound traffic. If you have any hybrid connections with on-premise, you can also set up some of those networking features. If you have a gateway setup, you can also put in a gateway configuration, and you can also have VNet integration for your app, for your web apps. So this is also for multi-tenant. Multi-tenant is when you're sharing the underlying infrastructure. Single tenant is when you are not doing that, you're using an isolated deployment. So you can see here, there's also isolated SKUs for both external and internal type of use. So here in this case, you have deployed a virtual network, a VNet, And then you can expose your app using some dedicated IP addresses that can be accessible over the internet. But you can also use a load balancer. All right. So the load balancer will have an IP address that is exposed, but then it will distribute the load between your apps. Yeah. So, the main takeout here is that you have a variety of networking features that you can configure for your web app deployments. So we're going to do a small exercise, and hopefully this can bring in a bit of interaction. And this is now the sandbox I was talking about. I'm going to show you how to run it. And I was already doing something. I hope it hasn't terminated my session. So I'm going to put a link on the chat. We can do it together. So you can do it on your own. And what can happen is that, so lab exercise on deploying a web app, and we're gonna do it together. So please check on the Q&A. Please click on the link, and then let's get to the exercise. And Lorraine, you can help me do this in case. Lorraine, try and follow along so that if the students are quiet, you can speak on their behalf. Yeah, sometimes you feel like you're talking to yourself. I hope you guys are gonna mtachangamka. All right, so just go to that particular link, and please, again, it's part of your learning path. Please make sure you've logged in. This is a very important stage. Can you see there's a particular account I've logged in with, my session, because this will be linked to the portal. So just to show you, you'll see the web app, it's here. So what will happen, when you log in, you'll see that your directory is on the Microsoft Learn Sandbox. So that will be the first thing you'll notice once we start the sandbox. Now, of course, when you start, you will have to do a capture. It's a capture, there's a capture image. Have you guys seen the capture image? I had already started the lab. Who's doing this so that I can hear feedback?
Yes.
There's a capture, right?
Yeah.
So you need to do the capture puzzle. And when you do the capture puzzle, it will then spawn the sandbox. And the sandbox will be associated with your account, the account that you've logged in with. Is that okay? Is that clear? So that when we go to portal.azure.com, you will log in on portal.azure.com with that same account that you are using for the sandbox on this page. And then it will show you the web app you've deployed. So it will link the two. So even here, when I do the commands, which we will be doing in a short while, when you do the commands here, guess what will happen? They will be recreating those resources and creating them onto the portal using this account as the link. You get it? Yeah. So how many of you, just maybe a show of hands, have been able to activate your sandbox? Just a show of hands. Ruth, okay, awesome. Enjoy, okay. And Mordecai. If more of you do it, just raise your hand so that I can know, where we are at, whether we can push on. And also just to say you have 10 sandboxes a day. This is just also to prevent a kind of potential denial of service on their platform. And it will also tell you how long the sandbox is active before it self-destructs, so that in case you never ended the lab, because there's also a way in which you need to end the lab. If you didn't end the lab, it destroys itself so that it frees up the resources. So again, just by a show of hands, I know 3 have said. If any others have reached there, let's move on together. Any others? Or maybe you guys are doing other things. You know, sometimes for these calls, people log in and then disappear. They go. It's just for attendance. Lorraine, are you there? I don't want to leave you behind.
Yes, Prof, I'm here. I'm trying to, I can see, do I have to download it? Download the sample app?
There's nothing to download. I'll take you guys through. All I want you to tell me is if you've activated your sandbox. Do you have this part?
No.
Have you followed this link that I've put on the Q&A?
Yes. Yes, I
So
have.
where are you at? Where are you at
I
now?
have verified the captcha.
What's the next thing?
Or should I review permissions?
Ebu share your screen. I'm not so sure what you're.
Okay.
Where you're stuck, eh? Hey, is that how your desktop is? Oi, no wonder
I didn't clear Byron's. Jen told me not to clear.
Yeah,
There's something she did from the machine.
That's why you're running a hacker's machine. You don't even know what's running in there. That machine needs to be formatted and rebuilt from scratch.
So
you have all
Jen
sorts of things running in there. Ebu just click review permissions. Accept. And remember that account, Lorraine at Gmail.
Okay.
Because that's the one. Yeah. So now it's creating your sandbox, correct? All right.
Thank you.
All right. So we should have I don't know how much time you guys have. I had already started mine earlier, but it should be more than enough. So we're going to deploy a simple HTML and CSS site to web apps. And we're going to be using CLI commands. And you can already tell which one am I using? This is Bash. Eh? Can you guys tell it's Bash and not PowerShell? So we're going to be using some Bash commands. And then we'll see when we make changes to our code, it will push the changes to the running app. Okay. All right. Yeah. So part of the things also you expect to see is a resource group being created. You'll see this happening. It will also create the default service plan. It will also create it with the name that we specify, and it will zip the deploy files that we have in our working directory to the web app. And I'll show you all that as we begin. All right, so the first thing is you can copy this. We're going to make a directory called HTML app. So you copy that. You can actually run more than one of the commands. So you can, so mine already exists. So I had already done that. So then we're going to change. You can even type just for interactivity. Change into the app. You can ls. I had already done the next steps, but the next step is a git clone. A git clone basically is a git command to copy files from a particular repository. The repository we're interested in is this Azure samples. So there's a particular Hello World code as part of Azure demos. And just to show you what this really means, I could go to Git, like I can copy this URL, this HTTPS, like that. I can copy it here. If you see my screen, github.com Azure samples. There are many Azure samples, but the one we're working with is the Hello World. It's many. There are many repositories. So it's the one that we have there. HTML docs Hello World. Again, it's a what do you call it? You can even type here HTML. Docs. Let's see if it will show us. Yes, here it is. It showed up for a while. There we go. It's under repositories. So this is the code we're interested in. Here it is. Git.com, Azure samples, HTML, docs, hello world. And the Git command, like if you guys know how to work with Git, this basically also gives you the commands to use and how to access that. You can also download the zip file for your own machine. So we're gonna see this particular code. It has an index.html. If you want to look at the index.html, it looks like this, right? And we're going to explore the very same code within our deployment, okay? So let's go back to what we're doing. Oh my goodness, if I can find. There we go. All right. All right. So if you can do that, change your directory to that particular app, do the git clone. I had already done it, so I'm not going to do it again. Now, the next thing is we're going to do is set some variables we need so that we can set up the resource group. So just copy this. If you guys know anything, we're creating a variable called resource group, and we're going to put a value into it. Okay. So let's just copy that and you execute it. What is a way of seeing a variable's content? Echo. So again, it's creating for us a random name for our. Oh, actually, there are two variables here being created. Sorry, I need to correct that. There are two variables. So the first one is a resource group variable. That's if my machine will, I don't even know what it's doing. Maybe I end. So the first variable is this one. The first variable is the resource group variable. Has it hanged? And then the second variable is the app name. And the app name will be called AZ204 app with a random identifier. So like I had done it before. So my app before was 15760 because all our apps have to be unique. They have to have a unique ID. So just a minute, let me change my Wi-Fi. Power is back. Are you able to hear me? Yeah, I've been using bundles. It's been a bit of a challenge. So as you can see, it created a resource group. This is a random resource group. It also was able to associate me with a randomized app name. And all these are important because we will, failed to provision authentication token message. it has expired. Please refresh the page. If the issue persists. Okay, guys, I'm sorry. It seems because when I started this thing earlier, it may have timed out. I might have to restart it again. I wonder what impact that will have on my already deployed. So I might have to start again. Sorry, it seems it has timed out. Let's see if it will require me to start again. It has some pending notifications.
Has anyone else's sandbox refused to work? Have they
Yours
gotten
has
an error?
refused. What is the error it has given you?
Let me just go back.
Do you want to share?
Okay, so it's restarting. Let me just see.
Oh, so you guys have also gotten the Nini. So first of all, Victor Maora, I hope you saw that Lorraine resolved the permissions issue, right? Lorraine, you resolved the permissions issue, didn't you?
Yes.
Yeah. Now, something else, you need to kind of tap into the command shell section and press enter for it to connect. So don't just wait for it to do it. So actively tap into it, click into it and press enter. So that will initiate it to connect. And then you should expect this. Actually, it saved my session. My session was still active. Yeah, so I'm able to continue from there. So it timed out on my resource group query. I think it's also because, let me just do this, echo, and I echo my resource group. It has nothing. There, it has returned. So if I echo my resource group, it's able to give me my resource group. So the command to see the value, should I copy also this one? The command to see the value is echo. But remember to proceed your variable with a $sign so that you see it. So just to see the app name you've been given, again, it's case sensitive. You guys know that. So for you to see the app name that has been given and to see your resource group parameters, you just need to do that. So initially my app name had been given 15760. So let me align them. So I'll say my app name is equals to, because this is important, I'll just copy it to the same that had been deployed before so that I don't have a different, By the way, I'm doing this because I had done this before. I hope you understand. So I'm just aligning the variable